Mark Kotze has some very difficult decisions coming up in the next few weeks as competitions stiffen up in Arizona. Let's break it down today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I am your host, Booney, one name, all passion. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen of the day. I'm from the Bay Area, and I've been a die-hard A's fan since 1981. This isn't just another A's podcast. This is the most informative and insightful show on the A's, period. We cover the A's every single day, breaking down games, delivering the latest team news, and giving you deep, thoughtful analysis you will not find anywhere else. If it's happening in Sacramento or Las Vegas, we've got you covered. No fluff, no filler, just real, passionate, and relentless A's coverage. We are free and available everywhere, including YouTube. And do me a favor, hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. Now, let's talk some A's baseball. The A's are a third of the way through their 30-game spring training schedule, and the competition is heating up. Position players were supposed to be, for the most part, set. But with Max Schumann beginning 1 of 12, Daryl Hernandez 3 of 15, and non-roster invitees such as Alejo Lopez hitting .500, going 6 of 12, and Logan Davidson, former first-round pick, batting .308 and showing some pop. This is all of a sudden a question. We will get into that. One thing that has not been a question is the A's bullpen, as they have looked extremely sharp so far this spring. It's not making things any easier to make decisions. We will cover that in just a bit. The real headline now in spring training is the starting rotation, as it has always been. Coming into camp, we knew that there were three locks: Luis Severino, Jeffrey Springs, and JP Sears. Those guys are set in stone. But after that, it's chaos, absolute chaos. The big question was always going to be the fourth and fifth spots in the rotation. Osvaldo Bido looked like he had the inside track for one of those spots. I mean, I've been hyping him up all off season. If you have listened to this podcast, you know that I have said over and over, Basso just had to be okay this spring to lock it down. Well, let's just say he hasn't exactly made it easy on himself. His first start, 2 innings, no runs, 1 hit, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. That's what you want to see from a guy trying to cement his role. But then came his second outing against the Angels, and yikes. The command issues that have haunted him in the past reared their ugly head. He went 2 1/3 innings, gave up 3 runs on 1 hit, but walked 3 batters. And let me tell you, the contact was loud, like wake up the neighbors loud. So far this spring, Bido has a 6.59 ERA in 4 1/3 innings with 4 walks and 7 strikeouts. Not exactly inspiring confidence. And then there's Joey Estes. Oh, Joey. He came into camp with a real shot at locking down the 5th spot. I had him as the favorite to get the 5th spot in the rotation. But so far, not great. In 4 innings of work, he's given up 3 runs on 4 hits with 3 strikeouts. Those numbers aren't going to cut it when you got hungry arms breathing down your neck. And speaking of hungry arms, let's talk about Mitch Spence and Brady Basso. These guys have been lights out so far. Spence and Basso have combined for 9 innings of scoreless work, allowing just 2 hits while striking out 7 and walking 2. Now, that's how you make a statement in spring training. They're on the outside looking in right now, but if they keep it up, man, they are going to make it really hard for the coaching staff to send them down. Then there's Hogan Harris, the long shot of the group. He's been solid. 3 2/3 of an inning, no runs, 1 hit, but 6 walks. 6. That's not going to fly at the big league level. If he can rein in the control issues over his next few outings, he might just force his way into the conversation. Here's the thing. We're only 10 games into spring training. These guys are likely going to get 4 more outings each before decisions are made. That means there's still time for someone to step up or for someone else to stumble. As of today, here's how I see it. I have Bido penciled in as the 4 starter because I believe in his upside and what he has done in the past. But he's hanging on by a thread. For the 5th spot, I'll flip-flop Estes and Spence in my rankings, with Spence now ahead on what we've seen so far. And don't sleep on Brady Basso. He's right on Estes' heels. If Harris can get those walks under control, he might sneak into the conversation as well. But here's the kicker. Here is the crazy kicker. Our bullpen is absolutely loaded this year. Absolutely stacked. So for these rotation hopefuls, it's either make the starting 5 or pack your bags for AAA Vegas. No middle ground. That seems aggressive. Why in the hell would I say that? I will tell you why as I cover the bullpen up next. This episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, let's tackle a topic that's giving me a headache just thinking about it. The A's bullpen situation. Seriously, this one is a doozy. All right, here's the setup. The A's are rolling with a 13 pitcher, 13 position player roster. That leaves 8 bullpen spots after you account for the 5 starting pitchers. So far, the rotation looks like it'll feature Bido and Spence. Let's just make the assumption that they earned that they won the 4th and 5th spots in the rotation. Let's say that's set in stone, or at least close to stone as spring training gets. But that leaves just 4 spots. 4 spots. How do I figure 4? Mason Miller, Jose Leclerc, Michelle Otanez, and TJ McFarland are in. Done deal. 4 spots and a whole crowd of arms vying for them. Let me tell you, if I were Mark Kotsay, I'd be losing sleep over this one. Let's break it down. First up, Tyler Ferguson. I can't even believe I'm mentioning his name. Now, on paper, you'd think he'd be a lock for one of these spots. He's got the pedigree. He's got the stuff. He has the experience. He closed games last year when Mason Miller was hurt. But this spring, it hasn't been pretty. 3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. That's an ERA of 9. Look, it's not panic-worthy just yet. It's spring training. But he hasn't exactly made a compelling case so far. Then there's Jacob Lopez, the lefty who came over in the Jeffrey Springs trade. He's had just one outing so far, 2 innings of no-hit ball with 1 walk and 2 strikeouts. Small sample size, sure, but you got to like what you have seen so far. And hey, a solid lefty is always a nice weapon to have in the bullpen. I expect Jacob Lopez to get some innings today. Now let's talk about Noah Murdoch. This guy is fascinating because he's our Rule 5 draft pick. For those who might not know how that works, Rule 5s have to make the big league roster or they're gone. Poof. You can't just stash them away in the minors. No pressure, right? Murdoch's been okay this spring. 2 2/3 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 Ks, 2 walks, ERA of 4.09. Not bad, but is it enough to secure a spot? That sinker of his fits the A's pitching philosophy perfectly, so I wouldn't count him out quite yet. And then there's Grant Holman. He got a taste of the big leagues last year, and he's been decent this spring. 2 innings pitched. He hasn't allowed any runs, but he's given up 3 hits. He's not blown anyone away, but he's not hurting his case either. Now, here's an interesting wrinkle that took place yesterday that just kind of threw me off. Elvis Alvarado, who we picked up on waivers from the Pirates. This guy came out of nowhere with an absolutely dominant inning, striking out 2 in a perfect frame. Talk about making a first impression. It was his only outing, but man, if he keeps that up, he could force his way into the conversation. And we're not done yet. Joey Estes is still in the mix. Hogan Harris is there too. And don't forget about Brady Basso. How in the world do you just pick 4 from this group? It feels almost impossible. Honestly, I don't envy Mark Kotsay here. On one hand, you got guys like Tyler Ferguson and Murdoch who come with either expectations or roster rules that make them tough to leave off. On the other hand, you got wild cards like Alvarado who could be breakout stars if given the opportunity. 4 up to me, and thank goodness it's not. I'd lean towards Lopez. I like the lefty arm. And he's looked sharp so far. After that, maybe Murdoch. The Rule 5 situation is tricky because if you release him and he turns into a stud somewhere else, that would sure sting. Then I'd probably give a flyer to Alvarado because, hey, why not? If he keeps pitching like he did yesterday, he could be electric. And for the last spot, man, Holman, he hasn't wowed me, but he hasn't done anything to lose that spot either. But then what about Ferguson, Estes, Harris? See what I mean? This is brutal. I mean, really extremely hard to figure out. Let's hop to position players, which isn't much easier. Same thing. If we're rolling with 13 pitchers and 13 position players, and let's be real, that's pretty standard these days. 10 of those position players are already locked in. Let me run through those names. Shea Langoliers, Tyler Soderstrom, Zach Geloff, Jacob Wilson, Gio Urshela, Miguel Andujar, JJ Bleday, Lawrence Butler, Urias, Seth Brown. That leaves us with just 3 spots open. 3, and trust me, the competition is fierce. Let's break this down by player because there are some serious pros and cons to consider for each guy. Buckle up. It's about to get really, really interesting. First up, CJ Alexander. Now, CJ got off to a blazing start this spring, which definitely caught some attention. I had him as a sleeper going into spring training, and he sure made me look good. He's even shown some versatility by playing a bit of outfield. A huge plus considering we only have 4 outfielders right now. And let's be honest, Seth Brown is serviceable out there, but he's not exactly a Gold Glover. So having someone like CJ who can fill in could be valuable. But here's the issue. After that hot start and I started speaking about him, CJ's gone ice cold. I will never talk about another player again like that. He's 0 for his last 10 at-bats. Spring training is all about making an impression. Unfortunately, this recent slump isn't helping his case. Still, his early performance and positional flexibility might keep him in the conversation. I mean, what do you think? Is his versatility enough to outweigh a cold streak? Something to chew on, that's for sure. Next up, Daryl Hernandez. Now, Daryl is an interesting case. He had some flashes of brilliance. 2 of his 3 hits this spring were triples. Triples! The A's in 10 games, believe it or not, have only 2 stolen bases. Hernandez has 1 of them. That's the kind of explosiveness that is rare and could be a game changer. When this guy gets on base, he makes things happen. But here's the catch. He needs to get on base more consistently. Right now, he's sitting at just 3 hits in 15 at-bats. That's not exactly screaming, lock me in for one of those final roster spots. Still, there's something exciting about his upside. It feels like just 1 or 2 good games away from making a real case for himself. Let's talk about Logan Davidson and Alejo Lopez. These 2 are probably the longest shots on the board, but hey, stranger things have happened, that's for sure. Let's start with Alejo Lopez. This guy has been quietly making waves. He's batting .500 this spring. Yup, you heard it right, .500. Not only that, but he hasn't struck out yet, and he's been playing very good defense. That's the kind of consistency that is hard to ignore. He is second on the team in batting average to the Law Dog Lawrence Butler. On the other hand, we have Logan Davidson. I did a episode on him where he started off on fire. And once I did the episode, he's gone cold. But he's still batting .308 with a little pop in his bat. Nothing earth-shattering, but definitely respectable. Plus, remember, he is a former first-round pick. You have to wonder if the front office might give him a longer leash to prove himself. It's a tough call between these 2. Do you go with Lopez's hot hand or Davidson's pedigree? Decisions. And then there's Johnny Peretta. This one's tricky because he's technically slated as our backup catcher. And here's the thing. Tyler Soderstrom has been getting more reps behind the plate than Peretta this spring. If Soderstrom can handle backup catching duties, and it seems like he can, that might free up Peretta's spot for someone else entirely. It's a domino effect, really. If Soderstrom becomes the backup catcher, that opens up another spot for an infielder or an outfielder. But if the team decides they need Peretta as an insurance policy behind the plate, that limits our options elsewhere. It's a tough call for sure. And finally, because I can't believe I'm even saying it, Max Schumann on the bubble. Max is one of my personal favorites. I love him. I love the way he plays the game, but man, he has not had a good spring so far. He's 1 of 12 at the plate and has struggled defensively. It pains me to say it, but unless he turns things around quickly, he might be on the outside looking in. So where does this leave us? Honestly, I don't know. Each of these guys brings something different to the table. CJ Alexander has versatility, but needs to break out of his slump. Daryl Hernandez has explosiveness, but needs more consistency at the plate. Alejo Lopez is red hot, but lacks experience and will need to continue to bat at this rate to have an opportunity. Logan Davidson has pedigree, but hasn't done enough to separate himself from the pack. And there's Peretta and Schumann, both wild cards in their own ways. Here's my gut feeling. If I had to pick today, I would like to see someone like Lopez for his hot bat and solid defense. He just feels like someone who could make an immediate impact. After that, maybe Daryl Hernandez because of his upside and versatility in the infield. And for that third spot, I'm torn between CJ Alexander and Logan Davidson. It might come down to who finishes spring training stronger. But hey, that's my take. What do you think? Who would you pick for those final 3 spots? Hit me up on social media or drop me an email. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Look, At the end of the day, this is what spring training is all about. Making tough decisions and seeing who rises to the occasion when it matters most. The good news is that the A's have options, great options, and that's depth. It's going to be crucial over a long season. Chances are we're going to see all these guys up in the big leagues at one time or another. That's for sure. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew Onai. MLB fantasy draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and I will check you guys out tomorrow.